Okay, this is part 2 of 3 for DOGE. And so you remember part 1, red, white stripes with the little purple flowers with the white star in the middle. Look, it's a giant's foot. Those rocks came from where we're getting ready to go too. They all came out of the ground over there when they built the apartments. And that tree used to look pretty cool. The tree was like the hairy leg of a giant. And then my wife died and it died. I mean, it was her tree, but look. Camellias are blooming. They're pretty cool the way they bloom so early in the spring. It's still like on the cusp of winter and you got these pretty flowers. There's a real nice mosaic under there. I've got a handful of them around here, but the weeds grow over. Look good when I clean them up though. So anyhow, the red, white, and blue flora or flowers, bushes come from over there, along with them rocks. The apartments called the fields because it used to be a slave plantation. Centuries old. And that's the fields that they used to grow in, where the apartments are. And this driveway used to go straight across. This was, when we moved in, this was a 2-lane road. Ditches on both sides, potholes everywhere. And straight across. Driveway went up. And there was the manor house on the right of the slave plantation. And this used to be a swamp. And see, Fort Belvoir, right up the street, was, they were going to put Lorton Prison there. Lorton Federal Prison, which is like the DC prison because they don't have a state prison, they're all federal. And so it's the DC and federal. And they were going to put that at Fort Belvoir. And then the Army said, no, we want Fort Belvoir. We'll give you a site that's up the road, a mile and a half up the road. Well, I mean, it's a great big site, but so the Bureau of Prisons say, well, we'll put us in a road from Route 1 up there, you know, for the connect Belvoir and the prison. And this was the best access through. He says there's a swamp here though, right? And this is after the Civil War, but the owners, who go back to the Civil War were still there. And so they made a deal. And they filled in the swamp to put the road in. And part of the deal was Army Corps of Engineers filled this in and built this house. The house is like 100 years old. It'll be 100 years old in a few years. Okay? So when I moved in, the plantation house was still there. There was still an old guy living in there. It was falling down. It was centuries old. He was afraid to leave because his ghost wife, and his daughter that died there, their ghosts were haunting him, or so he thought. He was afraid that if he tried to leave, they wouldn't let him. They'd kill, he'd wind up a ghost too. So he stayed until like the bulldozers showed up. And so he had told me about the history of the place and about a graveyard, slave graveyard, still there. Now, when they were going to build the place, you know, the law requires they do a bunch of historical, archaeological research and historical research on any potential historical valuable land. Now, this land, it was owned by, these were George Washington and George Mason slaves, and I mean, the land's all conflated in all kind of different. It was kind of a secret plantation. Like, it's kind of a scandalous story. Having to do with mulattoes. It was like, if you came to the plantation, you would see white plantation managers and black slaves, but they were really all the same family, and it was just kind of fake that they were slaves and slave masters. It was really brothers and cousins and sisters, and if you were born white, you got to play the role of the masters of the plantation and the foremans, and if you were born black, you got to play. But when no one was looking, they ran this place, and under the grace of the founding fathers and their legacies, and kept secret because they were the founding fathers. So nobody wanted to talk about their offspring they had with slaves. So and so but see, the place is called the Fields, and it's the fields of the plantation. And then it's like, okay, well, that could be coincidental, but then it's like, no, it's Lewis Chapel Circle and Lewis Chapel Road, and then there's in the back, closer to records show Mason's land, but this shows Bayless lands, and the surname goes to Britain. Bailiff, meaning if they're named Bayless, at some point they were bailiffs in Britain. And bailiffs in Britain were the people that ran, bailiffs were people that ran plantations. Well, not they ran agricultural institutions and they ran them for the Knights Templar. Because the Knights owned so much of Europe, they didn't run their own industries. And they called the people that ran it for them, the managers, the CEOs, were called bailiffs. So now you got up by Mount Vernon, there's another bailiffs slave graveyard that's like well maintained. It's got like its own lot. It's like in a nice neighborhood. It's well kept. It's got fence. It says what it is. If you look it up in the county, it says, yeah, here's a slave graveyard here, and it's got like its own lot. They had enough respect for it that they could have they could have bulldozed it and built another lot, but they didn't. Well, I mean, legally they couldn't. But that's the graveyard they didn't have to hide. That's like the slaves. Like, because if you were born, if a male slave had sex with a white female, American citizen female, the baby was born free, because the baby of an American is born free no matter who the father was. But if the father was the master, or white, then the black slave, the offspring, and the mother was a slave. See, here's the periwinkle. See, and those bushes were planted like at the entrance, which would have been like up around that side of that building where the house was, or a little further back. Well, no, actually it's more like here. And so you had the red, white striped bushes with these little stars growing underneath. And actually, this is a different flower. But I saw that, and I planted them all over there because I figured what they meant. It was an homage to the history of the place. And so, but if the female is a slave, she's the property of the master, and any offspring she has are property of the master. So if it's born to a free woman, so she could have a black baby, but it would be born free, even though it couldn't really go nowhere because everybody gonna, think they're a slave. But if they're born to the white master, then they're property of the white master. And so, and that was normal, and nobody cared, and masters had sex with their slaves all the time, and babies, and but then the founding fathers like, well, wait a minute, we don't want this in our history, so they but see, they're the offspring and the mother are they're still family to the father. See, so it's like that's like when they call them like house Negroes. A lot of house Negroes are offspring of the master, or the master's daughter or wife or whatever. And so down here they it's like they give them their own plantation and they run it themselves, and nobody knows. It just looks like another plantation because the white ones are the foremans and running it, and the black ones are the look like the slaves, but they operate like a family. So now this is the perimeter of the graveyard here. Is this is the old bar for it, and I mean, you can see the wheel, but there's there's a couple feet of trash dumped in top of here. Underneath all this, like in the winter, when it's really cold and all these weeds die back, there's just all this garbage. Like somebody dumped all their old files or something, like boxes and boxes and boxes of them, and there's trash. And it's not marked. It's fenced off. So it's an admission they know what it is. But like, this is affordable housing. Hi, doggy. And there's a lot of African Americans in here, and Africans, and people from other countries, and they have no idea what this is. So like, see, I doubt anybody who threw any of this trash here, I bet they would all feel horrible if they knew what this really was. And they built it like right here, right up to the line. and then they did like they're required to do an archaeological dig, and which, I mean, I was waiting for him to come to look at the house so I could, try to to see what they were going to do, like to make sure they weren't going to tear it down, make sure they understood the history of it. And, I wanted to keep an eye on them. And one day I come home and they've done, it's half bulldozed. And I go over to talk to the guy and he's like, I don't know. He just told me to come down here and tear it down. Oh, I don't know anything about it, dude. I'm just the bulldozer guy. And then I find they're doing an archaeological dig along the creek, Native American dig. Okay? And guess what the name of the Indians here were? They were the DOGE Indians. No lie. DOGE Indians. So they do this gratuitous dig, which is a whole other part of the story I'll tell if anybody actually is talking to me about how they did that. But it's the same. Oh, Jesus. These people are such morons. And you're dealing with them. These are the people around here. These are your deep staters. And they're really simple-minded. They're not diabolically evil. They're stupid. They're as stupid as everything you're seeing. They're just, the leadership is crooked. They fall all up in the middle of it. And so, okay, let's move along. Now, there's a sewage treatment plant. This creek runs right down here, down through the woods, comes out at Route 1. On the other side of Route 1, there's a sewage treatment plant. Because, see, we're down here in the valley. This is like the lowest place in the county. So, the sewage, you wanted to siphon downhill, the less pumping stations. This is the lowest place. That was, and that sewage treatment plant is right down the bottom of the hill, like 100 yards from Pohick Church. And if you look up the history of Pohick Church, George Mason and George Washington built that church. And that's got a whole interesting history behind it I won't go into. And this creek has got a bunch of history on it, not just the scandalous plantation, but there were mills along here, and lots of history happened. The whole American Revolution was really founded around. It was really like they built the churches. It was Lewis Chapel Church, which is what they named that after. That's how you know they know what the hell all this is. And that they had some kind of future plan for it. Now what happened is they built the sewage treatment plant here, and it would smell. It smelled like you're in a dirty diaper down here. Especially Saturday night. Some reason, like people come through here heading to the Potomac, everybody, nice warm evenings, and they're filling up their gas and coolers and stuff, and heading down to the river to go water skiing or whatever with their boats. And I mean, I just remember seeing them. They always be, and the whole place smelled like a dirty, like you're inside a dirty diaper. And so when I first moved down, I was like asking the older folk around here why more attention wasn't paid to the history. There's all this history around here. I looked up this stuff. I looked up all kind of stuff. And they said, well, the sewage treatment plant. It's kind of, it's right down the bottom of the hill from the George Washington's church, from Pohick Church. And but there's no place else to put it. Was the best place to put the sewage treatment plant, and the whole thing was just kind of embarrassingly shameful, but then not, because you had to put the sewage treatment plant somewhere. And so and then there was the prison that was really corrupt, and people escaped all that. I mean, people came and went out of there, and they sound the alarms, and there's always alarms going off around here, even though like the guard is giving the guy a ride to DC and going to come back in the morning, but they got to bill it as so that's what they didn't build all array. It wasn't developed. It was just a shithole down here. And so then they put a bunch of money and they fixed the sewage treatment plant so it didn't smell. And they shut down the prison, which they've now turned into apartments and art centers and shopping centers and stuff. It's all real nice up there now. Well, see, then they started developing the whole area. That's when they have to look at the history. Because they're required to. They have to look to find out what this place is. And so they tore down the house and did that to the graveyard. Meanwhile, I got these really horrible real estate speculators who know all this stuff, and they know my house is the last remnant of all this. It's a historical house and a center focus of what's left, because there's not much left, but that house is like a ideal visitor center. And then they would rebuild the mill down there, and draw more attention to Gunston Church and try to build a Williamsburg type of thing around it. And they have taken to me, they're just really, really nasty. And they have flaunting, just right to my face, told me that I don't count in all this because the federal government has sanctioned what they're doing. That the federal government wants the land, and if we don't give it up by the time they decide to do what they're going to do around here, they'll just take it. They'll give us the fair price. They say, we'll give you more for it now, but eventually the federal government is going to take it from you. But he would never tell me. I kept talking to him all the time, whenever I got the chance. But he would never tell me what he meant by that. I knew what he meant, but I was trying to get him to tell me. And I think that's pretty much it. And then, that's what my projects in the yard are about. A lot of the junk comes from right there. That's that wall, that wood wall, that building there. That's where they dump people throw away stuff. Whenever somebody gets moved somewhere for the government, and throws away a lot of stuff because they're, really transient, or if they get evicted. But I mean, there's always stuff there, and you can tell it's, I know how the government works. They pay you per diem to buy a bunch of stuff and a bunch of cheap crap because they know you're only going to be here so long, and then you just throw it away and hop on a plane and buy new stuff when you get where you're going, and they just haul it to the dump. And this is like my defensive armor against these idiots that think that they can just decide that the federal government has a bigger plan for my life than I do, and they can just come in here and not even tell anybody the history. Leave that graveyard over there with African Americans that like live there, throw beer bottles off their balconies or take a piss inside, like you can see where the fence goes right up to the exit to the back of the apartment building. Is you take a piss right through the fence. It's inviting. Throw trash over this fence into the woods. Piss over this fence into the woods. Throw your garbage. All people that would be horrified if they knew that was holy ground. And so it goes to like everything I'm working on here from the first video. I mean, this is a life dream for me. I started gardening when I was a little kid in Annandale. And I had this idea was suburban plantations, because I mowed people's grass for money. And I liked the money, but I hated mowing fucking grass because all I could think about was how stupid grass was. And then my father finally let me start gardening in the yard, and I was like, if I can get good at this, I can go around and get people to let me turn their yards into beautiful gardens and grow produce and flowers, for sale, and for they get free stuff. I get, stuff to sell and get a bunch of other kids. And well, that, nobody would let me do that. And then when I got older and they were throwing away a lot more stuff, I was like, because it was always on recycling, but not like environmental recycling. It was on free stuff recycling, cost cutting. And so then I came up with this plan for building castles of trash in the 80s. When trash was becoming prolific, they were throwing away a lot of good stuff, and I was like, man, if I had a company like they got now where they haul away people's junk, but they haul it up to the dump and throw it away. And it's like, well, why aren't you, doing this? Why doesn't everybody's yard have a bunch of gardens that look like this, that are designed for easy maintenance and, why does that stop at the grass? Especially here. The kind of stuff I do, making charcoal, you'll see the video, the wood chip stuff, lots of other stuff. It's stuff the government, it's stuff that working people send money to the government to do, and then the government turns around and does everybody up the bum. Because that's just the way they are. And they are. I've been here my whole life. You all are not wrong. That is the way they are in person around here. The people around here they don't come here that way, but they don't take long before they get that way. And you become an enemy. That's what I am. Like okay, I put out a pamphlet, a magazine telling the story about across the street that I just told you, after the real estate speculator pulled a really, really nasty one on me. And so I told her too, and she shut the hell up. She didn't know I knew. I just mentioned one little thing, and she's like, "Oh my God, he knows all of it." It's like, "Yep." And all the crap you pull on me, I know why. And I've known why for a long time. And she got the heck on away from me. And then I printed up the book and I delivered some around here. Next thing I know, I got these fake I got these DEA people pretending to be sewage people, and see that hole there? They dug this hole like while I'm working in the yard, and they're hanging around their truck like right here and just eyeballing me all day like, we got your number. And they sent the zoning board after me, and they sent these the cops, they sent the police to my door on Thanksgiving morning. They and they didn't park here. They parked there in front of my neighbors, like in the middle, like in front of their big picture window. There were cop cars all lined up there with the lights blinking and blinking, cops hanging around, coming back and forth from my house. And they were here for no reason whatsoever. They said, because you printed up this magazine. I was like, yeah, did you see it? No. Well, it upset some people. I was like, well, it's definitely upsetting. It was supposed to upset people. And she kind of shut up on that, but I got them to get out to the street, because they brought this giant cop, this like 6'6", 350-pound cop who had previously tried to pick a fight with me because he thought I was homeless, and he got in a bunch of trouble for it. And then here he is. He's at my back door on Thanksgiving morning trying to push his way through the door. And that hole in the highway, that's like that highway, when they were putting it in, the foreman and an engineer, they on a couple of occasions had said, you need to hook up to the county sewer before this road is finished. I said, we ain't gonna do it. But he kept saying, well, you should, because you're not going to be able to do it afterwards, and you're going to be in a really big mess. And he says, because we can't dig up this road once it goes in, because he's like right now. Well, as soon as the pavement and everything goes in and the road is finished, I can't even come in here and like dig a hole of any kind, and I can't do anything to this road, or I'll be breaking federal, state, and local laws. Like this road is designed for military use. It's got Belvoir up there. It's like this special road. They reiterated it twice, how important that road is, and that there's no way I'm going to be able to hook up to the county sewer line after it's put in. And then these ass clowns are out here digging a hole. They told me they're looking for a manhole. They're looking for a manhole. And I was like, and then another guy from the water company, he shows up, and he's like these guys were all like white. They're supposed to be outdoor workers, and they're all like soft hands, white, no tan, looking at me. It's like they wanted me to think that, the kind of stupid crap you see coming from the government now, like trying to intimidate you, and all you're thinking is like, you people are morons. But the story's longer than that, and this thing's getting to be about done. But so I went out and I said, well, when you get the manhole out of there, can I have the cover? And I'll build it into something, into one of my designs. And they got all weird, like, because there's no manhole there. Because the guy from the water company who came, he was asking me, like, why are they he's like, there's no way. It's like, I know how they build these roads. They don't leave stuff like that underneath it. There's no reason for them to be doing this. I don't understand. And he asked me again, like I was supposed to have an answer. And I was like, it's like, well, I know why. I mean, the story's a lot more detailed than that. Like they sent like okay, I had this charcoal project inside, experimenting growing succulents in the charcoal, just trying to see, because I couldn't find anybody that was growing in pure charcoal. So, okay, then that means I'm going to grow. It's like nobody's growing succulents the way I am on the East Coast. That's all California. You order them and you get a really nice collection pretty cheap from California because they grow like crazy out there. You can't grow them outside here, and they're hard to grow inside. And I was like, okay, that's a good one for me. So I did this. I took down the structure. It was that thing. It was standing up. And I got covered in black soot doing it. And I had to wear, like, you know, I wore that red sweatshirt over my head, over my face, to not breathe in all the dust. But I got sweaty and it was all covered over me. And it dawned on me later, it's like, oh, that's why them people were looking at me funny, because it looked like I had a fire inside. And I was cleaning it up without, you know, secretly cleaning it up. Like, oh, he must be a meth cooker. Next thing you know, I got these idiots out here digging up a hole like they're DEA or something, you know, but they want me to think I'm being watched, so then they're going to wait for me to make a mistake, get all freaked out and make a mistake. And I'm just like, I mean, you wouldn't believe this story if you weren't DOGE dealing with these morons already and saying, like, they make no sense, they never do. It's not new. They haven't since I was a kid. It's like there's this cult, this federal cult around here of the dumbest, damn, arrogant, royal-minded. Oh man, it's like I built all this waiting for Trump. You know? As a defense. Well, I mean, it's what I do, but it's like it took it out to the road, like, you know, like, this is more formidable. This makes me more formidable than if it was still just a yard and they wanted to steal the property for whatever reasons. You know, whoever controls this controls the last, you know, the rook with regard to the mulatto slave plantation across the street and the history. And it's like if they can get this property, then they can either shake somebody down to not do anything with it, or they can do something. They can turn it into a tourist type of thing. But I mean, the slave graveyard. Yeah, but see, they could make the graveyard a scandal on their own. And then turn around and they play both. You know how they play both sides of stuff, right? And then they turn it into a scandal, and then they come along, their other side of their team rescues the scandal, and then they go and memorialize the slave graveyard and clean it all up and make it a story, and then they use that as a jump-off point to redo the whole area as regard to Washington and Mason and Pohick Church and the plantation at Belvoir and the prison, and and this is like a key piece for a visitor center, and for also like when she was pushing me, she was trying to get me to react, to get violent, you know, to say the wrong thing. She was secretly recording me and pushing my buttons, trying to get me to freak out on her. Because I did freak out on her husband, like, years back. Because he was, you know, but I stayed on my side of the fence. I stayed a distance from him because, like I said, he was pushing. And it was like, I know what he wants. You know, he's trying to get me to come over there and give him what he deserves. And then I'm going to jail and I'm out of his goddamn way. And then she's trying to do the same thing and recording me. But I mean, she's a woman. So it was like, I mean, I kept a distance from him and just cussed him. I argued with him until I settled down, and her, like, but I was polite to her the whole way. But she kept pushing my buttons, you know, like, come on, what about what you did with my husband? I was like, well, she's not just a girl, she's a pretty one. It's like, that's not going to work with you. Sorry, I don't care what you do. And so, But that's when I realized I was like, these people are getting dangerous. Well, plus, anyway, I mean, I'm not going into all that part. That's all in the, the, the dossier that'll be attached to all this. but that's when I came, but when she was like right at the pitch of it, like, and she's trying to get me to push me over the line, and then I just brought up one little reference to the slave plantation in this house that she would barely pick up on if she didn't know, and she just like, oh, she shut up. She gave me my way. She backed off, and they left me alone ever since. And then I built all that stuff up the side to like, is like a defense, like an anchor, like you got to go through all this, and it's all out there as something that matters, something like that, like when they sent the zoning guy in here, and I showed him how it all works, and I said, it's called build no design, build now, engineer later, which is like to a guy with a yard who wants to build something cool my way. You just get out there with a bunch of junk and you build it, no design, because how you going to design something like that is one idea to the next. And then I said, and the county should have somebody that like is an engineer who goes around and it's like, before you start using it, he'll come in and give you advice, make sure it's strong, you're not going to hurt yourself. I got plans for like techniques, how to do it safely, and I got this whole recycling thing with the wood chips and the garden and the charcoal and a whole bunch of other ideas, and just a whole different direction. Energy, alternative energy, local, trash, waste, sewage, like, eventually it all leads to like different ways of doing stuff. Not trying to say anything's bad about the way they do it now. It's just like, this is Fairfax County. George Washington and George Mason, we're supposed to be the people that come up with new ideas, not the people that everybody is afraid to talk to everybody else because they're from other countries. Like when they get somebody in another country to say, well, if you'll turn the dime, you'll drop a dime on your people here, and well, I would love to, but they'll kill me. And they say, well, we'll bring you to the United States and give you citizenship if you'll work with us. It's like, this is where they wind up. Like in Fairfax County or in the D.C. area, this is where they start out. They come here, they're right under the armpit of the federal government. They feel comfortable. You got the military, CIA, you got everybody around here. And so you got them, and then you got all the spooks, and you got the military, you got all these people that it's like one industry town, and nobody knows who everybody else is, so everybody just keeps to themselves, and everybody's got all these secrets and shit. And then and you come to that. Donald Trump and Elon Musk come to town and say, well, we're going to actually do something here. It's like, whoa. We're all like, we don't like too much stuff moving around, where everything's kind of got to stay where it is. It's got to move slow because there's all these secrets. Why? But you dig into the secrets and it's like, this is crap. It's like the plantation and the graveyard and the way they deal with me. Like I wouldn't even, they could have managed me so much differently. And the way they manage you, it's like the way to have managed Trump and Musk would be to work with you. If they'd have worked with Trump in his first administration and not cheated him out of the second one, and then they just went along with it all, they would have had just as good a chance as winning this last election as anybody else. And Trump would have fixed everything and made it all better, and then they could just slither their way back in and fuck it all up again. But they'd have a lot more money, a lot more power, take a lot more longer to take them down. But they don't think like that. They're just like, it's the way they are. They set their sights on something and they're like, we're us, you're not, we're going to get our way, we're going to take it, we're going to do whatever we want. and it's more about, like they say about pedophiles, it's not the sex, it's the control. They're control freaks. It's like they go after children because they can control children. It's not the sex. They could have sex, it's the same kind of psychopathy, it's the same kind of, and they're all over the place. It's like they don't get along in their own states and counties and hometowns because that's the way they are. And then they come here and they find this home where there's that's all that's here. All these same kind of psycho idiot people, and they make a mess of everything, just like the slave graveyard, and they tore down the plantation house, just like bulldozed it without even looking at it, without anything, and it's enough. I got one more. I'm not sure. It seems like I covered it all. Okay.